The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a metal ocean under the twin suns of Nexus Prime. Thousands of alien beings filled the curved seats that rose in perfect circles toward a domed ceiling made of pure crystal. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime as dozens of different languages mixed together into one deadly conversation. Admiral Zethkri stood at the center podium, his crystalline body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the floor. He was 12 feet tall and looked like a living diamond, with sharp edges that could cut through steel. His people, the Dominion, had ruled most of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. When he spoke, everyone listened. "The humans have gone too far," he said, his voice ringing like breaking glass. "Their little ships push into our space. They build colonies where they do not belong. They ask questions about things that should stay buried." Sarah Chun sat with the tiny human group near the back of the hall. She was small compared to most aliens, with graying hair and tired eyes. Around her sat 5 other humans, looking like children at a table of giants. Their section seemed almost empty compared to the massive delegations from other worlds. "The evidence is clear," Zethkri continued, waving a hand that sparked with inner light. "Human ships have been found near the Forbidden Zones. They have been digging up the old ruins. They have been asking about the first ones." A ripple of fear went through the hall when he said those words. The first ones were legend, myth, stories told to scare young aliens. Ancient beings who had built things throughout the galaxy before anyone could remember, then vanished like smoke. Ambassador Chun watched the alien faces around her. The bird-like Kethver ruffled their metal feathers nervously. The slug-like Brammer pulled their soft bodies deeper into their shells. Even the warrior race called the Iron Claws seemed uncomfortable, their red eyes glowing brighter with worry. "Humans have been in space for only 200 years, said Voltar Prime Speaker, a being made of pure thought that appeared as shifting purple light. "They are children playing with tools they do not understand. But children with fire can burn down forests." "Exactly." Zethkri slammed his crystal fist on the podium, making a sound like thunder. "These humans spread too fast. They reproduce too quickly. They do not respect the old ways. And now they dig where they should not dig." Ambassador Chun had heard it all before. Every year, the complaints got louder. Human colonies were growing. Human ships were exploring. Human scientists were asking uncomfortable questions about ruins that had been marked as forbidden for thousands of years. "The solution is simple," Zethkri announced. "Humanity will surrender completely. They will recall all their ships. They will close all their colonies except Earth. They will stop all research into the ancient sites. They have 3 of their solar cycles to agree. And if we refuse?" Ambassador Chun asked, standing up slowly, the crystal being turned toward her, his faceted face reflecting the light like a broken mirror. "Then we will destroy Earth and every human colony in space. Your species will become extinct. Your name will be forgotten." Silence filled the great hall. Even the translator devices seemed to pause, as if shocked by the threat. "We have the ships," Zethkri continued. "We have the weapons. The Dominion fleet alone has 10,000 warships. Add our allies, and we have enough power to turn your sun into dust." Other alien leaders nodded agreement. The machine intelligence called Central Processing spoke in electronic tones. "Humanity poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Removal is the logical solution." The Hive Queen's representative, a 6-legged insect the size of a car, clicked her mandibles. "Our warriors grow restless. They hunger for battle. The humans would make good practice." Ambassador Chun looked around the hall at thousands of alien faces staring at her, with everything from pity to hunger to cold calculation. These beings controlled fleets that could crack planets. They had weapons that could make stars explode. They had ruled the galaxy since before human ancestors learned to make fire. "You seem very confident," she said quietly. "We have reason to be," Zethkri replied. "Your entire space fleet could not defeat one of our scout groups. You have nothing we fear. Nothing you know about," Ambassador Chen corrected. A few aliens laughed, harsh sounds that echoed strangely in the vast hall. To them, the idea that humans could have hidden weapons was absurd. Human technology was primitive compared to theirs. Human ships were slow and clumsy. Human weapons barely scratched the paint on alien hull armor. "You have 3 cycles," Zethkri repeated. "Use them to say goodbye to your people. When we come, we will be merciful and make it quick." "Before we answer," Ambassador Chen said, "we need to talk to our predecessors." The word hung in the air like a strange note of music. Predecessors? What could she mean? Humans had only been in space for 2 centuries. They had no predecessors except the primitive apes they evolved from. "What predecessors?" asked the Veltar Prime speaker, its purple light flickering with confusion. "The ones who have been waiting," Ambassador Chen replied with a small smile. "The ones who taught us to hide our time. The ones who built the ruins you're so afraid of us finding." Several aliens started to speak at once, but Zethkri raised his hand for silence. "You speak nonsense. Humans are a young race. You have no connection to the ancient builders, don't we?" Ambassador Chen asked. "Then why are you so worried about us digging up old ruins? Why do those sites call to us in ways they don't call to you? Why do human scientists keep finding things in those ruins that respond to human touch?" The questions hit the gathered aliens like physical blows. It was true that humans showed an unusual interest in the old sites. It was true that they seemed to understand ancient technology faster than other races. But the idea that humans could be connected to the legendary first ones was impossible. "Enough games," Zethkri declared, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. "You have 3 cycles. Surrender or die. We will have an answer for you," Ambassador Chen promised. "And I think you'll find it very interesting." As the council session ended and aliens began filing out, many cast worried glances at the small human delegation. Something in the woman's calm confidence disturbed them. It was the kind of calm that came from holding a secret weapon. But what weapon could humans possibly have that would matter against the combined might of the galaxy's greatest powers? Soon, they would find out. Dr. Marcus Reeves pressed his palm against the smooth black wall deep inside the moon. The surface felt warm, almost alive, even though it had been sealed for thousands of years. His team of 6 scientists stood behind him in the narrow tunnel, their helmet lights cutting through darkness that had existed since before pyramids were built on Earth. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Lisa Park, checking her equipment readings for the 10th time. "The energy signatures we're seeing don't match anything in our database. This could be dangerous." Marcus kept his hand on the wall. 3 days until the alien fleets arrive," he said quietly. "We're past worrying about dangerous." The tunnel they stood in was carved from solid rock, using tools that shouldn't have existed when it was made. The walls were too smooth, too perfect. The angles were mathematical in ways that hurt to look at directly. And everywhere, strange symbols glowed faintly with their own light. "The symbols are getting brighter," noticed Dr. James Wright, the team's linguist. He'd been studying the markings for months, trying to understand what they meant. "It's like they know we're here." Marcus nodded. According to the secret records passed down through his family for generations, the symbols were DNA locks. They would only respond to humans who carried the right genetic markers. Humans whose bloodlines went back to the original refugees who fled to Earth so long ago that their story had become myth. "Beginning activation sequence," Marcus announced. Following the ritual his grandfather had taught him in whispers. He moved his hand to specific symbols in a pattern that felt familiar, even though he had never done it before. Genetic memory, his family called it. Knowledge written in blood and bone. The wall began to change. The black surface rippled like water and dissolved completely, revealing a passage that stretched beyond their lights. Cool air flowed out, carrying scents of metal and electricity and something else. Something that smelled like the space between stars. Impossible, breathed Dr. Park. The air inside is perfect for humans. How can that be after all this time? They walked forward into a chamber so vast their lights couldn't find the ceiling. Emergency lighting began to glow as they entered, revealing a space that could have held a city. But it wasn't empty. Shapes loomed in the darkness, massive and graceful and completely alien to human technology. Ships, but not like any ships humans had ever built. These vessels looked grown rather than constructed, with curves that flowed like living things and hulls that seemed to shift color in the light. Some were as small as fighters, others large enough to carry entire cities. And all of them hummed with sleeping power. The readings are off the charts, Dr. Wright said, his voice shaking. These ships are generating energy, but they're not turned on. It's like they're dreaming. Marcus walked toward the nearest vessel, a sleek craft about the size of a destroyer. As he approached, lights began to glow along its hull, forming patterns that looked almost like writing. A section of the ship's side became transparent, revealing an entrance. It knows I'm here, Marcus said wonderingly. After all this time, it remembers us. Captain Elena Chun arrived with her security team just as the ship's systems fully awakened. She was Ambassador Chun's daughter, a career military officer who had commanded human ships for 15 years. But she had never seen anything like this. Dr. Reeves, she said carefully, what exactly are we looking at? The truth, Marcus replied. The truth about who we really are. He led them inside the ship, where walls showed images that moved like memories. Scenes of humans building great cities among the stars. Humans with technology that made current galactic powers look primitive. Humans who traveled between galaxies, like others traveled between planets. This is our history, Marcus explained as the ship's AI began to speak directly into their minds. Humans didn't start on Earth. We were refugees. Our people once ruled not just this galaxy, but dozens of others. We were the first ones that the aliens feared to name. The AI's voice was gentle but ancient, like the memory of wind through old trees. It told them of a great war fought across the cosmos, of a civilization that chose exile over destruction, of ships hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for the day their makers would return. But why hide? Captain Chun asked. Why let ourselves forget? The AI showed them images of burned worlds and dying stars. The war was too great, it explained. Even in victory, we had become something terrible. Your ancestors chose to start again, to be human in the simple sense rather than gods who had forgotten how to care. So they locked away the memories. Marcus continued the story his family had preserved. They let us grow naturally on Earth, keeping only a few bloodlines who could wake the sleepers when the galaxy needed its guardians again. More ships began to activate as human presence filled the chamber. Some were beautiful beyond description. Others looked like nightmares made real. All of them carried weapons and defenses that operated outside normal physics. Captain Chun felt drawn to one ship in particular, a vessel that seemed to call her name. As she touched its hull, knowledge flooded her mind. The ship was called Eternal Vigilance, and it had been waiting specifically for her. Not for someone like her, but for her exact genetic pattern, her exact mind. The bonding process, the AI explained as Captain Chun screamed and then went silent, her consciousness merging with systems beyond human understanding. Each ship chooses its human. Each human completes their ship. Together, you become something greater than either could be alone. When Captain Chun opened her eyes, They glowed with starlight. She could feel the ship's power flowing through her like blood, could see through sensors that detected things beyond normal matter. The vessel wasn't just a machine anymore. It was part of her, and she was part of it. "How many ships are there?" Dr. Park asked, staring at the endless rows of vessels stretching into the darkness. "Enough," the AI replied simply. "Your ancestors built them slowly over millions of years, growing them like flowers in gardens they planted across the cosmos. Some sleep in other star systems. Some hide in dimensions beside our own. I'll wait for the call." Marcus activated more systems with his genetic keys, and the chamber filled with light as hundreds of ships awakened from their ancient dreams. The moon itself began to change, revealing that it was as much space station as natural satellite. "The enemy fleets will arrive soon," Captain Chun said, her voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to come from the ship itself. "They think they're coming to destroy children. But children grow up." Through eternal vigilance, she could sense the approaching alien armadas. 10,000 ships carrying weapons that could crack planets. Beings who had forgotten that their oldest legends spoke of humans with fear and awe. Time to remind the galaxy why their ancestors used to pray to the dark between stars, she continued, and smiled with the cold joy of a weapon finally allowed to wake. Outside Earth's atmosphere, reality began to bend as humanity's true fleet prepared to reveal itself to a galaxy that had forgotten what terror really meant. Admiral Zethkri stood on the bridge of his flagship, Crystal Sword, watching thousands of ships take formation around him. The combined galactic fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation, each vessel bristling with weapons that could destroy cities. Ships from 12 different alien races had answered his call to war. "All fleets report ready for jump to the Sol system," his tactical officer announced. The young Dominion warrior's crystalline face gleamed with excitement. This would be his first real battle, and he expected it to be easy. "Excellent," Zethkri replied, but something bothered him about the whole situation. The human ambassador's calm confidence stuck in his mind like a piece of broken glass. What had she meant about predecessors? The ship's communication system chimed with an incoming message. The holographic form of High General Carthex appeared, his iron claw features sharp as knives. Behind him, the bridge of his dreadnought bustled with activity. "My warriors grow impatient, Admiral," the red-skinned alien growled. "They want to taste human blood." "When do we strike?" "Soon," Zethkri assured him. "But we must be careful. Something about this feels wrong." Carthex laughed, a sound like metal scraping stone. "Wrong. They're humans. Soft little mammals with primitive ships and pop guns for weapons. What could possibly go wrong?" Before Zethkri could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the fleet. His science officer, a nervous being covered in sensory tentacles, rushed to his station. "Admiral," the officer called out in panic. "We're getting massive energy readings from the Sol system. Something's happening on their moon." "Show me," Zethkri ordered, the main screen filled with sensor data from their long-range scouts. The moon appeared normal at first glance, but energy signatures were spiking beyond anything in their databases. And the patterns looked familiar in a way that made his crystal heart race with fear. "Those readings," whispered his science officer, tentacles writhing in distress. "They match the old legends. The myths about the first ones." Across the fleet, other ships were reporting similar discoveries. The Machine Intelligence Central Processing sent a priority message. "Error. Error. Data does not compute. Energy patterns match theoretical models for extinct supercivilization technology." On her Baoship, Hive Queen Zacht felt her warrior drones becoming agitated. They sensed something in space that triggered genetic memories of ancient predators. Predators so terrible that the memory was written in their very DNA. "This is impossible," she chittered to her swarm, The first ones are myths, stories to frighten younglings. But deep in the oldest archives of the archive shepherds, emergency systems began activating records that had been sealed for millions of years. The shepherds were an ancient race whose only purpose was preserving knowledge, and their oldest files contained warnings that made them tremble. Elder Keeper Vothran emerged from the deepest vaults, carrying data crystals that had not been touched since his species was young. His 6 eyes showed the strain of reading information that was never meant to be accessed. Admiral Zethkri, he transmitted to the fleet commander, his voice shaking with terror. "You must stop the attack immediately. I have found records, old records, that speak of the true nature of humanity." "What are you talking about?" Zethkri demanded. "They are not a young race," Vothran continued, sharing his data across the fleet. "They are the children of the Star Walkers, the descendants of the Dream Builders, the inheritors of those who forged realities and broke the walls between dimensions." The information hit the alien fleet like a physical blow. Images from the archives showed human-like beings building impossible structures, wielding technologies that operated outside known physics, creating and destroying on a scale that dwarfed galactic civilizations. "The humans went to Earth by choice," Vothran explained. "They were not primitives evolving towards spaceflight. They were gods learning to be mortal again. But the records say they kept the keys to their old power, hidden and waiting." Admiral Zethkri felt his certainty crumbling like ice and fire. "These are just stories, legends. The energy readings from their moons suggest otherwise. Central processing reported coldly. Quantum signatures indicate space-time manipulation on a massive scale. Reality distortion fields. Dimensional folding. Technologies we classified as theoretically impossible." On the psychic command ship of the Veltar Confederacy, Prime Speaker felt something that chilled his energy form to its core. The dimensional fabric around Earth was changing, becoming something that hurt to perceive. Whatever was awakening there operated on principles that his people's advanced minds couldn't grasp. "All ships," he broadcast to the fleet, "I strongly recommend we reconsider this attack. What sleeps around that star is not something we want to wake." But Zethkri had committed too much to back down now. The combined fleets represented the military might of half the galaxy. Billions of beings were counting on them to eliminate the human threat. Political careers and entire civilizations' reputations hung on this victory. "We proceed as planned," he announced, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Even if these readings are real, they're just old technology. Ancient doesn't always mean better." "Aye, General Carr," Thex agreed, his warrior pride overruling his growing fear. "My Ironclaws have never retreated from battle. We will not start now." But as the fleet prepared for its final jump to Earth, more disturbing reports came in. Ships nearest to the Sol system reported that space itself was becoming unstable. Jump calculations that should have been simple were producing impossible results. It was as if reality was being rewritten according to different rules. "Admiral," his navigation officer reported with confusion, "our jump coordinates keep changing. Space around Earth is fluid. The laws of physics appear to be optional there." Dr. Youthfar, the fleet's top scientist, studied the readings with growing horror. She had spent her life studying the ruins left by the first ones, and these energy patterns matched her worst theories about their capabilities. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I believe we are about to encounter weapons that don't just destroy matter. They destroy the concept of matter. Defenses that don't block attacks, they convince the universe that attacks never happened." Zethkri stared at the data, feeling the weight of command crushing down on his crystalline shoulders. He had promised the Galactic Council an easy victory over primitive humans. Instead, he might be leading the greatest military force in galactic history into a battle with gods. All ships prepare for jump, he ordered, because stopping now would mean admitting they had made a terrible mistake. We are committed. May our ancestors forgive us for what we're about to face. As the massive fleet prepared to enter hyperspace, none of them noticed the small figure watching from the observation deck of the Crystal Sword. Ambassador Sarah Chen had requested permission to witness humanity's defeat firsthand. Instead, she smiled sadly as she watched 10,000 ships jump toward their destiny. You should have listened to your legends, she whispered to the empty space where the fleet had been. Some myths are warnings. The alien armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a swarm of angry metal wasps. 10,000 ships spread across space in perfect battle formation, their weapons charging, and their shields crackling with energy. At the center of it all, Admiral Zethkri's flagship gleamed like a massive crystal spear pointed at Earth's heart. "Target in sight," reported his tactical officer, unable to hide his excitement. Human defensive fleet detected, counting. 200 ships in standard formation around Earth. Zethkri studied the pathetic force opposing them. Human vessels looked crude compared to alien technology, like swords trying to fight plasma cannons. Their biggest ships were smaller than his scout fighters. "They're actually going to fight," laughed High General Carthex from his Iron Claw dreadnought. "These humans have courage. I'll give them that. Stupid courage, but still courage." "Open a channel to the human fleet," Zethkri ordered. "Let me offer them one final chance to surrender." The transmission went out across space, but before any human could answer, something impossible began to happen near Earth's moon. Space itself started to ripple like water, reality bending in ways that made alien sensors scream warnings. "Admiral!" His science officer called out in panic. "Something's coming through. But it's not using any kind of drive we understand. It's like space is just opening up." The first ship emerged from nothing, sliding into reality like a knife cutting through silk. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, with curves that existed in too many dimensions and a hull that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. As it appeared, every piece of alien technology in the fleet registered it as both completely solid and completely impossible. "Contact the unknown vessel," Zethkri ordered, his confidence cracking. "Demand identification." Before his communication officer could comply, more ships began emerging. Dozens, then hundreds of vessels that looked like someone had taken the concepts of physics and taught them to dream. Some appeared to be grown from metal and energy. Others looked like they were carved from pieces of the universe itself. "Admiral," his sensor operator reported with a voice full of fear, "I can't get proper readings on those ships. According to our instruments, they're there and not there at the same time. Their mass keeps changing. Their energy signatures don't match anything in our database." Captain Elena Chun, now bonded with eternal vigilance, opened a communication channel that bypassed all known technology. Her voice reached directly into the minds of every being in the alien fleet, carrying with it the weight of ages and the cold certainty of absolute power. "You have threatened the children of Earth," she said, and each word made reality itself vibrate like a struck bell. "You have forgotten why your ancestors whispered prayers to the dark between stars. Allow us to remind you." Admiral Zethkri felt his crystal heart crack with terror. The voice spoke with authority that went beyond rank or title. It spoke with the voice of species that had seen galaxies born and die. "All ships," he commanded, his voice breaking. "Open fire. Destroy them before they can attack." The alien fleet unleashed everything they had. Planet-killer missiles streaked through space alongside beams that could cut through moons. Reality-shearing weapons that tore holes in the fabric of existence itself fired at the mysterious human vessels. The combined firepower was enough to destroy entire star systems, The weapons reached their targets and passed right through them like light through water. The ancient human ships didn't even seem to notice they were being attacked. "Impossible!" screamed Carthex as his most powerful guns had no effect. "Nothing can ignore that much firepower." Captain Chun's voice reached them again, now carrying a note of infinite sadness. "You fight with weapons that destroy matter. We learned long ago to convince matter that destruction never happened. You think in terms of force and resistance. We think in terms of what is and what isn't." Eternal vigilance moved forward without any visible means of propulsion, space simply rearranging itself to bring the ship where it wanted to be. As it approached the alien fleet, it deployed a weapon that didn't fire energy or projectiles. Instead, it fired a concept. The concept was simple. You never existed. A section of the Dominion fleet simply ceased. Not destroyed, not vaporized, not reduced to atoms. They had never been there at all. The space they had occupied healed itself instantly, and the universe forgot they had ever existed. What did they do? Whispered Zethkri's science officer, staring at sensors that couldn't explain what had just happened. Where did the third battle group go? Other ancient ships revealed their own impossible weapons. One convinced enemy missiles that they were flower petals and should drift harmlessly through space. Another created defensive fields that turned incoming attacks into harmless light shows. A third opened tiny doorways in space that redirected enemy fire back at the ships that had launched it. The battle became a nightmare for the alien forces. Their most powerful weapons were useless. Their strongest shields might as well have been made of paper. Ships that had conquered a dozen worlds were disabled by weapons that operated outside any known physics. That the ancient human fleet wasn't trying to destroy the alien armada. They were being gentle in their own terrifying way. Instead of obliterating their enemies, they simply stopped them. Ships found themselves unable to move, their crews unharmed but completely helpless. "Surrender." Captain Chun's voice reached Admiral Zethkri directly. "You are fighting the memory of gods. This can only end one way." "Never," Zethkri replied, his pride overcoming his fear. "The Dominion does not surrender." Eternal vigilance appeared directly in front of his flagship, close enough to touch. Through his view screen, Zethkri could see Captain Chun standing on what appeared to be the outer hull of her ship, breathing vacuum as if it were air. "Your people once built beautiful things," she said. And suddenly, his mind was flooded with images he had never seen before. His own species in their early days, young Dominion beings reaching for the stars with wonder instead of conquest. Artists and poets and dreamers who had been forgotten in the rush for power. "We remember when you were children," Captain Chun continued. "We guided your first steps into space. We left gifts for you to find when you were ready. We mourned when you chose conquest over creation." The revelation hit Zethkri like a physical blow. The ancient ruins scattered throughout Dominion space, the mysterious technologies that advanced their civilization, the gaps in their history that they couldn't explain. It had all been guidance from beings they now sought to destroy. Around the alien fleet, more ancient human vessels appeared. Ships that looked like living metal, vessels that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, craft that appeared to be made of pure thought given form. Each one represented power beyond imagination, weapons that could remake reality itself. "We don't want to hurt you," Captain Chen explained as alien resistance collapsed completely. "You are our children, all of you. We planted the seeds of your civilizations. We watched you grow. We hoped you would learn to be better than we were." The ancient fleet took up positions throughout the alien armada, not as conquerors, but as parents gathering wayward children. The demonstration of power was complete. The galaxy's greatest military force had been neutralized in minutes by weapons they couldn't understand, wielded by beings they had thought were primitives. The war, is over," Captain Chun announced to the defeated fleets. Now we talk about what comes next. In the silence that followed, 10,000 alien ships drifted powerless in space, while their crews tried to understand what had just happened. They had come to destroy humanity and instead discovered that humanity had been protecting them all along. The age of conquest was ending. The age of wisdom was about to begin. 3 weeks after the battle that lasted only 17 minutes, the Galactic Council met again on Nexus Prime. But everything had changed. The Great Hall felt smaller somehow, less important, as if the weight of ages had settled over it, like dust. Ambassador Sarah Chun walked to the center podium. But she was no longer just a human diplomat. She carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who spoke for beings that could reshape reality with a thought. Behind her, Captain Elena Chun stood in her new role as humanity's military representative, her eyes still holding the starlight glow from her bond with eternal vigilance. The alien delegates watched them with a mixture of fear, awe, and something that might have been relief. Admiral Zethkri sat with his crystalline form somehow dimmed, his pride broken, but his mind open to truths he had never imagined. "Before we begin," Ambassador Chun said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall, "let me tell you a story. It's about a species that grew too powerful too quickly, that learned to break the laws of physics before they learned to control their own hearts." Images filled the air above her head, memories preserved by the ancient ships, scenes of humans at the height of their power, beings who could create stars and destroy galaxies, who had spread across multiple universes like a cosmic fire. "We became gods," she continued, "and like all gods, we became terrible. We fought wars that lasted millions of years. We destroyed entire realities because we could. We forgot what it meant to be mortal, to care about individual lives, to value anything except power. The watching aliens saw worlds burn in cosmic fire, saw species wiped out with casual thought, saw the universe itself bent and broken by beings who had lost their humanity while keeping their human form. So we made a choice," Ambassador Chun explained. "We would start over. We would become human again, in the truest sense. We sent our children to a small blue world and let them forget everything. Let them grow naturally, learn compassion before they learn to break physics." High General Carthex, his warrior pride now mixed with something like shame, spoke up. "But you kept the weapons. You kept the power. We kept the keys," Captain Chun replied from her position behind the podium. "Hidden in our genetics, sleeping in our ships, waiting for the day our children might need their protection. We hoped that day would never come. But it did come," added Prime Speaker of the Veltar Confederacy, his purple energy form flickering with understanding. "Because we became like you once were." Ambassador Chun nodded sadly. "You conquered instead of creating. You fought instead of exploring. You became so focused on power that you forgot why power exists in the first place." Dr. Yithfer, the fleet scientist who had studied the ancient ruins for decades, asked the question that burned in every alien mind. "What happens now? Do you conquer us? Do you rule us as gods again?" "No," Ambassador Chun said firmly. "We refuse to repeat our old mistakes. We don't want to rule anyone. We want to guide. We want to teach. We want to help you become better than we ever were." She gestured, and the images changed to show the new reality taking shape throughout the galaxy. Ancient human ships had appeared in every star system, not as invaders, but as silent guardians. They didn't interfere with local governments or cultures, but their presence sent a clear message. The age of conquest was over. "The rules have changed," Ambassador Chun announced. "Wars of conquest are forbidden. The strong may not prey upon the weak simply because they can. Species that choose violence over cooperation will find their fleets mysteriously unable to function. Admiral Zethkri found his voice, though it sounded hollow compared to his earlier arrogance. And if we refuse these new rules? Captain Chun answered with a smile that held no warmth. Then you'll discover what our weapons can really do when we're not being gentle. We've shown you parlor tricks. Would you like to see what we built for actual war? The threat hung in the air like a physical presence. Every alien in the hall remembered the casual ease with which human ships had disabled the galaxy's greatest fleet. If that had been restraint, what would their full power look like? But we hope it won't come to that, Ambassador Chun continued in a gentler tone. We've watched you all grow from primitives to star travelers. We've guided your steps, protected you from threats you never knew existed, celebrated your achievements. You are our children, and we want to see you succeed. The Hive Queen's representative, her insect features showing confusion, asked, "What about expansion? What about resources? How can we grow without conquest?" "By learning to create instead of taking," Ambassador Chun replied. "By sharing instead of hoarding. By exploring the universe instead of fighting over pieces of it." She gestured again, and new images filled the hall. Technologies that could turn asteroids into gardens. Methods of creating energy from quantum fluctuations. Ways of traveling between dimensions to find new resources without taking them from others. "We will teach you," she promised. "But only if you prove you can learn. Only if you show us that you've moved beyond the need to solve every problem with violence." Elder Keeper Vothron of the Archive Shepherds stood slowly, his ancient form trembling with emotion. The old records speak of a golden age, when the Star Walkers taught young races to reach for greatness. Is this the return of that time? It could be, Ambassador Chun said, if you're willing to earn it. Over the following months, the galaxy slowly adjusted to its new reality. The ancient human ships remained in their positions, silent but watchful. Some alien species tried to challenge the new order, only to find their fleets mysteriously breaking down whenever they approached weaker neighbors. Others embraced the change, discovering that cooperation yielded far better results than conquest ever had. The humans didn't impose a government or demand tribute. They simply made aggression impossible while making cooperation profitable. Trade flourished. Scientific exchange accelerated. Arts and culture began to bloom as resources were diverted from military spending to creative pursuits. Young aliens throughout the galaxy looked up at the stars with wonder instead of fear, knowing that ancient guardians watched over them. The nightmares that had plagued their species for millennia, dreams of cosmic predators and galactic tyrants, faded away as they realized the darkness between stars was filled with protectors. Not threats. And in the deepest chambers beneath Luna, more ships continued to grow, patient and eternal, shaped by technologies that merged science with dreams. They would wait there until the galaxy's children were ready for the next lesson, the next step in their evolution towards something greater than they had ever imagined possible. Ambassador Chun stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station, watching alien ships pass peacefully through human space. Many of them carried scientists eager to learn, artists wanting to share, young beings who had never known a universe ruled by fear. "Do you think we've made the right choice?" asked Captain Elena Chun, joining her mother at the viewport. Her connection to eternal vigilance allowed her to sense the emotions of every living being in nearby space, and what she felt was hope. "Ask me in 1,000 years," her mother replied. "But for now, the children are safe. The monsters are gone. And maybe, just maybe, we can teach them to be better than we ever were." Outside the station, the galaxy turned in its ancient dance. But for the first time in millions of years, it turned in peace. The long night was ending. The age of wonder was about to begin.